Hey everyone, Matt here. Today I'm quite excited because it's finally time to open this, which should contain something pretty amazing. Okay guys, check it out. A 500 watt LED from UG LED with super high color accuracy. This is $500. Let's see how it performs. So we've got a little chart here showing the spectral graphs, and as you can see, one of the things that makes this a really good LED is that it's got very high colour accuracy thanks to a very broad spectrum, particularly in this range where there is actually some cyan colour, and that makes a huge difference to the colour rendition. So the LED itself, because it's 500 watts, needs a colossal heatsink, which you can see here. Dragging it out. Okay, that's big. You can see that there's a fan on the inside, so that means that this is a very self-contained unit, so you don't actually have to do much apart from plug in the power. And what I'm going to be using for this is a pair of server power supplies that have been wired up in series. Now these can deliver 2000 watts at 24 volts, so they are extremely powerful. But obviously I can't plug these straight into the LED because even at 24 volts, it's still not high enough to reach the LED's forward voltage, which is about 30 volts or so. So I'm going to use a voltage booster. Now this is a very powerful one, and it can deliver about 600 watts, so it's plenty powerful enough for this. And it's also got current limiting, which I've set to be capped at 12 amps, which is what the LED is rated for. And this is an essential feature to have when you are driving LEDs. So before I power this on, I need to spin up the fan. Now this fan is really loud, and it does shift a lot of air, as you can see here. But as a side effect, it sounds somewhat like a jet engine. So I'll mute it for your sake. Right, so now it's time to try the LED out. So I'm going to use a screwdriver to just turn this variable trimmer, and this is increasing the voltage. And as the voltage increases, the brightness of the LED also increases. Now, as you can see, at 100 watts, it's already extremely bright. This is equivalent brightness to most of the other LED lights I've built, like this studio light that I use. But obviously this new LED can go way brighter than that. So I'll continue increasing the voltage until the current hits about 12 amps, which results in a wattage draw of about 440. And as you can see, it's rather bright. Now, compared to outside, it lit the room to about the same level. I mean, granted, it wasn't a super bright day out there, but even so, that's very impressive. I even took it outside with the use of an extra long extension cable, and it lit up the trees beautifully with really nice colours. This is a really good example of how good the colour rendition is, as it has a CRI of 96, which I confirmed with a spectrophotometer. Now I did use a reflector for these shots, which narrowed the light into a more intense beam, but without this, it actually has a really broad throw, which could be very useful as well. Now it's quite hard to convey brightness over a video, but hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of it. Now in regards to thermals, the heatsink does do a good job at keeping it cool, but that's, to be expected as it is quite noisy. Now the LED itself is held to the heatsink by a block and some screws, so I'm just going to undo these so that we can have a closer look. Wow, okay, there it is. So that's the other side of the block, and this is the LED. So having a close look at this, we can see that there's a sort of grid pattern going on, and those are the actual emitters themselves, and they all combine to create the super bright output. Now the most remarkable thing about this LED is that even though it's so bright, they've managed to pack it into a very small area, and this has some very major advantages for different kinds of projects, because it's much easier to focus light when it's coming from a point rather than a bigger area like some of the older generation chips. So that they've managed to get this amount of light output out of such a small area is phenomenal, and is one of the reasons why this LED does fetch a bit of a premium. So I'm sure you're wondering what kind of projects such an LED would be useful for, especially as it's so expensive. Well, I'm actually going to be using it for something very special, which is very experimental at this stage, and I'm actually going to be making a fake sun. So this will involve making the rays parallel so that there's no difference in shadow size, and also brightness if you're close to it or further away. And the idea is just to mimic it so I can use it in my studio to make it look like it's sunny all the time, because it's like the holy grail of lighting is to mimic the sun. Now, other applications that you can use this for are things like studio lighting. That would be primary, I would say, for this because of its accuracy and brightness, but you could also use it for a specific installation where you do need a lot of light, and in such an instance like that, this is actually a very cheap item to use. So it's not for your average tinkerer. It's for something where you need something very specific, but it does it so well that it is worth the price it commands. So I'm very impressed with the engineering that's gone into this, and it's going to be very exciting to work on some projects with it. So stay tuned for those. A huge thanks goes out to UG LED for sending me this to have a look at, and I've left a link to the LED and some of their other products in the description, because I do use them for my studio lights and stuff, and big fan. You know, I'd have probably bought this anyway if they hadn't sent it, because I really do want to make a fake sun. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it interesting, and I'll catch you in the next one. So goodbye for now.